Look, history doesn't remember the easy calls. It remembers the ones that kept a man awake at night. December 16th, 1944, middle of the Ardennes forest. And it's snowing. Hard. Not the pretty Christmas card kind of snow. We're talking about the kind that freezes your eyelashes shut and makes you question every life choice that led you to this frozen corner of Europe. George S. Patton's sitting in his command room in Luxembourg. The place is basically a converted schoolhouse with maps everywhere and a couple of dim lights barely keeping the darkness out. Outside, pure chaos. Winds howling like a wounded animal. Inside, dead quiet. Patton's staring at this massive map spread across the table, his jaws tight, hands flat on the wood, nobody saying a word. You could hear a pin drop if anyone was dumb enough to drop one. Then the phone rings. It's that old rotary type that sounds angry, even when it's not. Someone picks up, listens, face goes white. "Sir, it's Bastogne." 4 words that changed everything. See, here's the thing. The 101st Airborne, some of the toughest guys in the whole damn army, they're completely surrounded. The Germans launched this massive surprise attack through the Ardennes, caught everyone with their pants down. Now these American boys are trapped in this little Belgian town called Bastogne, and the Nazis have them in a death grip. No supplies, no backup, no way out. And Eisenhower, yeah, Supreme Commander Eisenhower, he gets on the horn to Patton and basically says, "George, I need you to save them. You've got 48 hours. 48 hours. Patton hangs up the phone, doesn't say anything, just turns back to that map like it personally insulted his mother. His staff is watching him, waiting. You gotta understand, Patton's Third Army is way down south, pushing east. They've got momentum, they've got plans. Everything's lined up perfect. Now Eisenhower wants him to turn the entire army 90 degrees north. Let me put this in perspective for you. We're talking about 250,000 men, thousands of tanks, trucks, artillery pieces, supply lines that stretch for miles. And Eisenhower wants all of it turned on a dime. In the middle of winter, during a blizzard, through enemy territory. It's like trying to turn an aircraft carrier in a bathtub, while blindfolded, and someone's shooting at you. One of his staff officers, probably sweating through his uniform despite the cold, clears his throat and says, "Sir, the weather report just came in." Patton doesn't look up, and
Blizzard, sir. Could last 4, maybe 5 days. Air support's grounded. Nothing's flying in this mess.
now that's a problem. See, tanks without air cover, they're basically big, slow targets. The Luftwaffe and German artillery would have a field day. It'd be like shooting fish in a barrel, except the fish are American soldiers and the barrel is a frozen forest road. Patton stands there. You can see his brain working overtime. The guy's a genius when it comes to warfare. Everyone knows that, but even geniuses need luck sometimes. And right now, luck's not picking up the phone. One of his colonels speaks up. "General, maybe we should request a delay. Wait for the weather to clear. Give us air support and better visibility." Makes sense, right? That's what any sane commander would do. But here's the thing about Patton. The man doesn't do wait. He turns around, and his eyes have this look. Not angry, not scared, just determined, like he's already made a decision that nobody else has caught up to yet. How long do those boys have in Bastogne? The intelligence officer checks his notes. Food supplies, maybe 3 days. Ammunition, 2 days if they're lucky. Medical supplies are already critical. Patton nods slowly. So if we wait for good weather, we're picking up corpses instead of soldiers. Nobody argues with that logic. "All right," Patton says. He plants both hands on the map. "We move in 3 hours. I want 3 divisions on the road by dawn. We're punching through to Bastogne, whether God likes it or not." That's when things get interesting. See, there's this chaplain in Patton's command. Nice guy, colonel named James O'Neill. He's standing in the back of the room, probably wondering why he's at a tactical planning session instead of preparing Sunday services. Patton locks eyes with him. "Chaplain, you got a minute?" O'Neill straightens up. "Yes, sir. I need you to write me a prayer." The room goes silent. Like absolute silence. You could hear hearts beating. O'Neill blinks. "Sir? A prayer," Patton repeats, like he's ordering breakfast. "For good weather. I need clear skies to get our planes up and our tanks moving. Can you do that?" Now, imagine you're this chaplain. Your commanding general, one of the most aggressive, profane, hard-charging officers in the entire U.S. Army, just asked you to ask God for a favor. O'Neill's probably thinking, is this a test? Is he serious? Did I hear that right? But Patton's face is dead serious. No joke, no sarcasm. Sir, I'm not sure praying for weather seems a bit what, chaplain? O'Neill chooses his words carefully. Unusual, sir. Patton almost smiles. Almost. Chaplain, you're a religious man, right? Yes, sir. You believe God listens to prayers? I do, sir. Then what's the problem? I'm asking for clear weather to save American lives. Seems like a pretty righteous request to me. You gotta hand it to Patton. The man's got a point. O'Neill nods slowly. When do you need this prayer, sir? Yesterday would have been nice, but I'll settle for tonight. That evening, Chaplain O'Neill sits at a tiny desk with a single lamp and a blank piece of paper. He's probably thinking this is the weirdest assignment of his entire military career. How do you write a prayer for a general who wants to control the weather? He starts writing, crosses it out, starts again. Outside, the Third Army is already moving. Tanks rumbling, trucks convoy forming, soldiers checking weapons in the freezing cold. Nobody's sleeping tonight. O'Neill finally settles on something. It's simple, direct, respectful, but bold. The next morning, Patton's in his office when O'Neill walks in with a single sheet of paper. Your prayer, sir. Patton reads it. His expression doesn't change. Then he looks up at O'Neill. This'll do. Print 250,000 copies. O'Neill's jaw drops. Sir? Every man in Third Army gets one. I want them to know what we're asking for. And that's exactly what happens. Over the next 24 hours, every single soldier in Patton's command receives a small card with a prayer printed on it. Almighty and most merciful Father, we humbly beseech thee of thy great goodness to restrain these immoderate rains with which we have had to contend. Grant us fair weather for battle. Graciously hearken to us as soldiers who call upon thee that, armed with thy power, we may advance from victory to victory and crush the oppression and wickedness of our enemies and establish thy justice among men and nations. Amen. Some guys read it and shove it in their pockets. Some guys read it twice. Some guys probably think Patton's lost his mind. But here's what nobody expected. December 23rd, 3 days after the prayer gets distributed, the sky clears. I'm not talking about a little break in the clouds. I'm talking about crystal clear blue sky, sun shining, perfect flying weather. After days of the worst blizzard anyone's seen in years, Mother Nature just... The meteorologists are stunned. The odds of this happening? Astronomical. But Patton? He just looks at the sky, nods once, and says, all right, let's move. The planes take off. P-47 Thunderbolts, C-47 cargo planes, fighter escorts. The entire 9th Air Force is suddenly operational. They start dropping supplies over Bastogne. Medicine, ammunition, food. The paratroopers below are probably crying as they watch those parachutes come down. Meanwhile, Patton's tanks are rolling. The 4th Armored Division is leading the charge. Behind them, the entire Third Army is moving north like a freight train that can't be stopped. But it's not easy. The Germans are fighting for every inch. Every crossroad is a battle. Every village is a fortress. The snow might have stopped, but the bullets sure haven't. Patton's in his jeep, riding up and down the column, shouting at tank commanders, checking on infantry units. The man doesn't sleep, doesn't stop. He's everywhere at once. December 26th. The 4th Armored Division reaches Bastogne. They punch through the German lines at 4:45 p.m. The siege is broken. The paratroopers inside Bastogne, guys who've been fighting on empty stomachs with frozen feet and dwindling ammunition, they see those Sherman tanks rolling in and they lose it. Grown men are hugging each other. Some are crying. Some are too exhausted to do anything but smile. General McAuliffe, the commander of the 101st, meets Patton's lead elements at the perimeter. He's probably the happiest man in Belgium right now. When Patton himself rolls into Bastogne a few hours later, there's this moment. McAuliffe salutes. Patton salutes back. And Patton says, told you we'd make it. Just like that. No big speech, no drama. Just 5 words that somehow say everything. Back at headquarters, someone asks Patton how he did it. How did he move an entire army 150 kilometers in 48 hours through a blizzard and break a German siege? Patton shrugs. Had a little help from upstairs. Then he pulls out that prayer card from his pocket. It's wrinkled, stained, been through hell and back. Chaplain O'Neill did good work. Here's the thing that gets me about this whole story. Was it the prayer that changed the weather, or was it just incredible timing? Meteorologists will tell you weather patterns shift. It happens, pure coincidence. But ask the men who were there. Ask the paratroopers in Bastogne who watched the sky clear. Ask the tank crews who suddenly had air cover. Ask Patton's staff who saw their general hand out 250,000 prayers. They'll tell you, maybe it was coincidence, maybe it was divine intervention, or maybe, just maybe, it was a commander who believed so hard in his mission that he made the impossible happen through sheer force of will. Because here's what Patton understood that day in Luxembourg. Leadership isn't just about tactics and strategy. It's about belief. It's about making your men believe that victory is possible even when everything says it isn't. He could have told Eisenhower, "Can't be done. Weather's too bad. We need more time." And he would have been right. Any reasonable person would have said the same thing. But Patton wasn't reasonable. He was necessary. Those men in Bastogne needed someone who refused to accept reality. They needed someone crazy enough to think you could pray your way to clear skies and fight your way through an entire German army in 2 days. They needed George S. Patton. The Battle of the Bulge continued for weeks after Bastogne was relieved. But that moment, December 26, 1944, that was the turning point. The Germans threw everything they had into that offensive. It was their last gamble, their final roll of the dice. And Patton stopped them cold. Years later, historians would debate the Bastogne relief operation. They'd analyze the logistics, the tactics, the timing. They'd write dissertations about the strategic implications. But you know what they couldn't explain? They couldn't explain how Patton got 250,000 men to believe in a prayer. They couldn't explain how the weather cleared exactly when it needed to. They couldn't explain how a general with a reputation for being ruthless and profane became the answer to a chaplain's prayer. Some things you can't explain with charts and data. Some things you just have to accept. December 1944. Bastogne. A prayer. Clear skies. And one hell of a general who refused to take no for an answer. That's the story they don't teach you in tactics school. That's the story that reminds you. Sometimes the difference between victory and defeat isn't firepower or numbers. Sometimes it's belief. Sometimes it's a commander standing in a frozen command post, staring at an impossible mission and saying, "We're doing this," and then making damn sure it happens. Patton died in a car accident in December 1945, just months after the war ended. He never got to see the peace he fought for. But that prayer card, it's in museums now, frame preserved, words still readable. And somewhere out there are probably a few old veterans who still carry a wrinkled copy in their wallets, men who were at Bastogne, men who saw the sky clear, men who watched those tanks roll in on December 26th. If you ever meet one of them and ask about Patton's prayer, they'll probably smile. And they'll tell you, "Damn thing worked, didn't it?" Yeah. Yeah, it did.